Handsome. You so handsome. I'm waiting on a bing, then we get started. All right, this is Jamil Salib Zamir out of Manning, South Carolina. Sincerely thanking everyone for tuning in. Happy Black History Month to everyone. We seem to have forgotten about that, forgotten about our ancestors. What's wrong with us, man? How come every time we get something, we run right through it and then just forget about it? What's up with that? Let's talk about that today. This is Jamil Salib Zamir. If you didn't tell anybody yet, go ahead and tell them we on the air. We're talking about the prevention of the rise of a black messiah, coming to you with proof today. So I'm asking you all to give me an hour, if you will. God willing, we will go through this thing. This has nothing to do with racism in terms of hating on any other race of people, but this has to do with the history that we have forgotten, chosen to forgotten, ignorant to, don't know about, and don't care about. But as it says, a person who neglects to learn about their history are doomed to repeat it. And we are repeating it today. Everything that you see happening has already happened and it's going to get worse. So tune in. Jamil Salib Zamir, Manning, South Carolina, like it.
Tell me like it is, and not like it was. Tell me like it is, and not like it was. Tell me like it is.
My browser.
Tell me like it is, and not like it was. Tell me like it is, and not like it was. Tell me like it is. Tell me like it is. Like it is. Like it is. Tell me like it is. Like it is.
All right, Jamil Salib Zamir, Manning, South Carolina. Please, if you will allow me just an hour of your time. I'm doing my job because when you're called to do something, you can either accept the call or reject it. I have a three-part series on Amazon entitled Many Claim Call, but Few Are Chosen. And but the title of the book is Few. You can go under Johnny Wilson in the ebook area, and it's been up there for a long, long time. And it's a 3-book series, and it tells you when I was called to do what I'm doing, why I accepted the call, and all of the things that I've gone through because of accepting the call. So the life that I'm talking about, the life that I'm living, I lived it for real, for real. Okay, and still am living it and being faced with obstacles the whole way. I mean, death the whole way. And you can turn away from it anytime you please, but I have no desire to turn away from it. I want to die on my dean on the square. And that's without a doubt. So I thank all of you for tuning in. We're going to go into something very, very serious today. And I got a lot of facts to back that up because I want our young black boys and young white boys who want to act black and play, this black music and think that they understand black life because they use the N word and think because they do what we do and mimic how we behave that they really want this life. You are not about this life. You cannot survive in this life. And I want to encourage young black boys to get up on your dean, stand on your square, and begin to do what God has called you all to do. And I'm going to tell you what that is. This generation, God called you all to be the vanguards, the protectors, the guards against anything that would prevent our rise to our position. But something sidetracked you, young black boys. And it wasn't by accident that you were sidetracked, it's by design. You don't have the ability to beat what Satan has put in place to stop you. Since the writing of this book called Bible, any Messiah that came or that was rumored to be coming to help the poor, disenfranchised, disconnected, the ignorant, anyone that came to free them of their bondage prior to their birth, those people were hunted down and killed. From the time of Adam and Eve in the Bible to Cain and Abel to Jesus Christ and all in between, There was always a hierarchy that looked for these signs of a Messiah that would come and balance the playing field between all races of people, all generations of people. But that balance would not allow Satan to keep his position of power. So that had to be quelled, that had to be nulled, that had to be stopped immediately. So Pharaoh and Herod would send summons into the city when they heard Jesus was coming. Mary was on the run. Anytime a Messiah is coming, there is somebody put in place to stop that Messiah. Your job, young black boys and black girls who out there partying 5 days out the week, high up 5 days out the week, 7 days out the week. Even those of you who are in college, who have neglected your duties as a college student in educating the uneducated, it is the job of those who are given more. It is the job of the educated to find a way to see to it that the uneducated reap the benefit of your education. It has never been about amassing wealth. It has been about educating the people. It's the job of the civilized to civilize the uncivilized. But as you can see in Clarendon County, and this is what I talk about South Carolina, Clarendon County, Manning, this our surrounding. This is what God commissioned me to do. This is why it is so difficult, because not only do I have to deal with hatred from my own people, which is the worst, but there are people who are already in place of power that know good and well that what I'm saying is not racist or hatred or homophobic or none of that. They listen to me all the time. It's not paranoia. I get cut off all the time. I'm just getting back on my Facebook account. I got cut off on, I'm just getting back on my YouTube account. I got cut off on a couple of my Facebook accounts. There's always somebody listening to see if what's being said is of benefit. The only thing that saves me is that none of you are really applying what I'm saying. But I will not be held accountable for not telling you what God has told me. I want you to understand, and we're talking about the rise of a black Messiah. I want you to understand how God works, because we've been confused. We think that once we accept God, life just gets great. In order for God to prove that he's real, you got to go through trial after trial after trial. Life doesn't get great until you prove that you're worthy of God's service to you. The Holy Quran puts it like this: do men think they will be left alone on saying we believe and will not be tried? And indeed, God has tried men before us so that he would know those who were truthful and he would know the liars. See, I don't see a lot of warriors standing up addressing the issue of violence in our community, the issue of corrupt politics in our community, the issue of corrupt ministries in our community, the issues of abuse, molestation. We push all of that under the rug. So this is not just for the street people. This is for the educated, because the street people are supposed to protect the educated people so that the educated people would have a platform to stand on and the protection from the soldiers so that they would not be harmed. Do you know I think it was the Second World War or Vietnam, don't quote me, but that the U.S. government hired the mafia to protect their ships, the mafia to protect their ships. And that's why the mafia had a connection with the police and the government, but they overstepped their bounds. You young people, with all of the courage you have, all of the knowledge you have, you don't even have to do the drug thing at all. You can set up what do they call them? Private security forces. Train and learn how to utilize your abilities to make money for yourself and your family. But something has distracted you. That's what we're talking about today. I thank you for tuning in. Jamil Salih Zamir, Manning, South Carolina. Thank you on Instagram. Miss Unique Beauty and Brian McKinney, salute to you. I thank you, man. I saw you out at the game with your daughter. Salute to you, man. It's a beautiful thing to see your child make it through school, number one, and to be able to have your daughter wrap her arm around your arm and her to achieve some of the things out of life she wants to achieve. That's a blessing. That's a gift. Thank God for that. And for anybody that experienced those things with their children during the senior day at the basketball game. Got a heavy subject today. We 10 minutes in. We got 50 minutes left. We're broadcasting live on Facebook at Jamil Salib Zamir. We're also on The Music Man on Facebook, and we are on the 19 Report on Facebook. Broadcasting live on Link because this is very important on Linked, because everything that I am given from God is about business and how we have to conduct business in our communities, how law is necessary in our community, how order is necessary in our community. Anarchy is not what we want in our communities. Anarchy to an ignorant person feels like freedom, but anarchy is a virus. Anarchy causes a community to fragment, and fragmentation causes the community to slow down and then stagnate and then die. I experienced this from New York to New Jersey to Philly, Detroit, Atlanta, College Park, and places like that, Alabama, Virginia. Listen, where all of this violence and crime is going on, for a while, there will be success for a few people. And then after a while, there will be destruction. And then after that, there will be gentrification, where the people with money will come in and buy all of your property at a low price and then boot you out further and further into the jungle, creating what is called ghettos. Now, 8 years ago, I did a commentary. It's on YouTube now. You can check it out. Okay, we're broadcasting also on YouTube, on Twitter, and also on Instagram. 8 years ago, I did a broadcast. It was entitled Kill All Boy Babies, Spare the Females. And I came out of Exodus. I'm reading off a piece of a paper. I came out of Exodus 1 and 22, and I talked about how they deliberately plan to promote homosexuality and lesbianism. And to my LGBTQ community, I don't even have to justify myself to y'all. We party together. Y'all know that. Y'all know how we do. I love y'all like I love my own, because I don't know what's inside of my own children. I don't know. So don't even put that on the plate. I don't have to try to justify that. But I don't believe that every child is gay. Every child is a lesbian. I believe that children experiment with sex at a young age because we're not monitoring them. And if a young girl goes down on a young girl and it feels good, of course, there's going to be a chemical connection in that. If a young boy goes down on another young boy and it feels good, of course, there's going to be a chemical connection in that. My brother and I were molested when we were younger by boys and girls. We go to free lunch in King Street in Rocktown. We get in the woods. You got to pull your pants down. Boys sucking on your wee-wee. Girls sucking on your wee-wee. You sucking on a girl vagina. You don't know. You just going with the flow. And if you get attention and it feels good, you're liable to get caught up in that. That is still going on today. Today. My life is literally an open book with the exception of things that you can't handle. But in private with the right people, if you ask me a question, I'll tell it to you. If it doesn't incriminate me. If it does incriminate me, I'll hint on it. You understand what I'm saying? I did the broadcast entitled Kill All Boy Babies, talking about that. Then I did a broadcast entitled Black Savage 8 years ago. How we were being targeted and how we were being portrayed as savages to justify the murder and incarceration and doping of young Black boys and girls. I talked about the police force. I talked about crime. I talked about the connection between the two when I lived in New York. That was a criminal empire. And when I came back to South Carolina, I saw some of the same elements. I am pro-police. I believe we need the police. The police has arrested me and they have helped me. When they arrested me, I was supposed to be arrested. When they helped me, I needed help. Some of them were a little too aggressive, but you know, you deal with that. We're talking about preventing the rise of a black messiah, and I just wanted to give you a kind of a backstory. I am from the street, but I'm not a street guy. I lived in it, I survived in it, but I'm not a street guy. I'm not a tough guy. I don't go around starting trouble. I hang with dudes that do that. And in any given day, if I ask them to come on, they will, but they protected me literally. My words was what God gave me to use. They looked out for me. Not that I'm bad with these, I'm okay with them, but they looked out for me by God's permission. So, J. Edgar Hoover, I'm going to introduce him to you, but he said something. He said, there will never be another black messiah unless we create him. This was after Malcolm, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Black Panther Party. The government was on the lookout for anyone who would unite black people for one common cause. Now, why would they be so interested in our unity that they would try to disrupt that unity and keep us fragmented? You should ask yourself that question. Why are there so many shows showing our young girls these false images of what a woman is to destroy her innate ability to be a woman of God? Why are these things targeting specifically black people? Why are there so many shows out about violence in the community and gangs in the community? Why are we so hooked on Snowfall and the other thing with the homosexual gangsters and BMF and all of these 2x? Why do we get so engulfed in these things when we see these things every day in our community and know that these things are destroying our community? Why are we so connected with them? And why can't we call out from our soul and ask Almighty God to change our mind about these things? How did we get so caught up that we desire the destruction in our community? The educated class of our community, your pastors, your ministers, your political officials, with all the crime and violence and depression and drug use that's going on in Clarendon County and in South Carolina as a whole, you very rarely hear them speak out about these things. They'll tell you when it's snowing outside, when it's raining outside, when somebody picked up some trash. They don't tell you when I picked up trash, but when somebody picked up some trash, they'll do all of these things, but they never address the issue of the mental illness in the black community among black boys and black girls. Not just them, poor whites and other people, but this in particular. Because once you give a person a way out, they understand that they can never come back and reach their arm out to save those who need to be saved. Of course, they can help other people like them. You got an education, you got a degree, or they will get into the mood where they're told, yeah, you can help this group, and they'll try to help, take some pictures, and then leave the situation. How can they make a people, a mother, so afraid that they will allow their black boys to die just to prove that they aren't racist? So afraid that they will allow their black girls to die just to prove that they love everybody. So afraid that they don't even address the issue. You got death. You know what death has become to us? A t-shirt and a party. We don't even address the psychological damage of losing a child at 18, 15, 8, 10, 9, 16, and the brutal way in which they die. We laugh it off, we smoke it off, we drug it off, we dance it off, but we never address the issues. Why is that? Why is it when drugs became a problem in the white community, they started a drug campaign? Why is it that they have the Narcan? That didn't start because black folks were ODing on fentanyl. That started because they were losing their best and brightest white boys and girls. I want to say this too. Our people get very afraid when I talk this way, even though it needs to be said. So I'll start out with people watching, and when I start using the word black and white or gay and lesbian, they don't even listen to what I'm saying. They just boop, cut off and go running. You heard what he said about the lesbians, in it? You heard what he said about the black people, and spread rumors about me, and you believe it. The best thing you can do is listen to what I'm saying all the way through. If it's too much for you, if it's too boring for you, whatever, come back to it later. But please don't speak on something when you have not heard the entire thing. That is a problem in our community. You've got young gang members shooting up the wrong people and the wrong houses because they are not investigating clearly who did what and why. Just going willy-nilly. Why am I doing this? Who is in there? There's a right and a wrong way to do the wrong thing. You are listening to Jamil Salib Zamir, Prevent the Rise of a Black Messiah. We're 21 minutes in. We got about 40 minutes left. I told you in the book of Genesis that there was a snake, or the representation of a small voice whispering in the ear of Eve and of Adam, according to biblical scripture, that put a suggestion in their mind. But by the time the book closes in the book of Revelation, that snake has morphed into a dragon. And that dragon, as it says in the book of Revelation, is sitting at the foot of the woman, waiting to devour her seed. We're at the point where the seed of the black woman is being devoured before it's born, because there have been artificial things put in everything to affect the mind state of the fetus before it's even born, because the brain develops first. We're talking today. I want to get into the subject, and then we're going to be going with it. I just want to put some facts out there for you so you'll understand that the FBI set goals for the counterintelligence program. These are all things that are on the internet. These are all I don't want to remove it. I want to put it up there so you can see it. These are all facts. So I want to put it up on the board for you, and I want to read a little bit. It says, under Director J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI COINTELPRO, which was the counterintelligence program, was aimed at investigating and disrupting dissident political groups within the United States. In the 1960s, COINTELPRO targets frequently included civil rights activists, both those who espouse nonviolence like Martin Luther King, and those that Hoover referred to as black nationalist hate groups like the Black Panthers, the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X. This document outlines the program's goals in attempting to limit the effectiveness of such groups. In practice, the FBI used infiltrations, legal harassment, disinformation, and sometimes extra-legal intimidation and violence against Dr. King. If most of you aren't aware of it, Dr. King had a private life. He was in extramarital affairs with other women other than Coretta. They recorded all of that. They recorded some other stuff that I won't tell you. You got to go and investigate it for yourself. And then they sent him a letter telling him, you might as well go and kill yourself, because once we put this information out, the people are going to turn against you. And Dr. King told him, if you're going to put it out, put it out. The Kennedys knew about it. One of the Kennedys' wife spoke about it, talking about how horrible Dr. King was when her husband was sleeping with Marilyn Monroe and freaking with that. But this situation is heavy. This is Black History Month, so I hope we get a pass on telling truth this month. In practice, the FBI used infiltration, legal harassment, disinformation, and sometimes extra-legal intimidation and violence against Dr. King, against the Panthers, and other Black activist groups in his attempt to discredit and disrupt them. Discredit and disrupt. That is the ticket. And it's no different today. It's easier to do because we don't read, we don't study. They say, I don't know who said it or who coined it, but the easiest way to keep anything from a Black person is to put it in a book. If it ain't on a video or TikTok, if it ain't on a reality show, we don't want nothing to do with it. If it's talk like this, we don't want nothing to do with it. It takes too long. It's too boring. You're too boring. But you cannot build a building cutting out some of the necessary things that are, if you put that building on a foundation, as it says in the Bible, you build your house on sand, it'll be destroyed. You got to build your house on a solid foundation. The solid foundation is facts. The solid foundation is truth. You got to be able to build it on truth. Now, I want to warn you with this real quick. Once this stuff comes out of my mouth and it's out there and you know it's there, once it's put in a book like Bible, Holy Quran, and other books, and you know it's there, ignorance is no excuse. You can't say you didn't know when the information is placed in your face. So you got people who are losing loved ones that they don't even have to lose because they're sitting there asking why. The why is because the truth is coming to you, but you don't want it. And it's understandable that at a period of time, people don't want truth, but you got to get to the point where you desire truth. Now, we're talking about J. Edgar Hoover and the prevention of the rise of a Black Messiah. This is all fact. I'm going to go into these points that they put together in order to prevent the rise of a Messiah. Some of the people they did not mention, but they were after Paul McCartney. They were after John Lennon because he was uniting Black and white. They were after the, what do you call it? Woodstock, because Black and white were together. Anything that put the people on the same level, they wanted to dismantle. Many of you should know that the civil rights movement with Dr. King, even the March on Washington, was put together by Bayard Rustin. Look it up. Bayard Rustin is a known Black male homosexual. He was, matter of fact, he was caught in the park in a sexual activity, and back then that was a real serious issue. But the way Bayard Rustin got that march to the size that he did, and why you must understand history and the past, is because most of those people that marched with Dr. King were gays and lesbians. And they were marching for civil rights, same as we were. But we were marching for human rights too. But all the rights that we marched for at that time have been null or reversed. And now the LGBT community have all the rights that we fought for, died for. I don't remember none of you all being lynched and murdered. I know for a fact that you're being murdered now. But they have gone so far as to say that gay is the new Black. Look it up. Don't accuse me of nothing until you look it up. Yeah, I'm not against the LGBT community. I march with y'all. Y'all know what time it is, those of you who know me. Because I don't know what my children are, who they are in secret. So I'm not going to condemn nothing. But let's get into this thing. 29 minutes, we got 30 minutes to go. For maximum effectiveness, this is the goal, was the goal of J. Edgar Hoover and the counterintelligence program. Check this out. For maximum effectiveness of the counterintelligence program and to prevent wasted effort, long-range goals are being set. See, in the black community, we are sprinters. We like to run fast and get it all and, hit a lick, do a scam. But the wise and the wickedly wise, they have 20 and 30 and 40 and 50 and 100-year plans. They put this stuff into practice and they instill it in the next generation. We can barely instill in our generation as black people for our children to keep the homes that we fought for. Y'all, as soon as we die, y'all sell it and buy a car with big rims on it. Or let the tax man get it and go stay in an apartment. But white folks have long-term goals, and I respect them for that. Everything that I'm talking about is not for violent purposes. This is for knowledge. This is what they're fighting, the critical race theory, where you can't teach in the schools, but you could teach it on your own private podcast. For maximum effectiveness of the counterintelligence program and to prevent wasted efforts, long-range goals are being set. Check this out. Prevent the coalition of militant black national groups. In unity, there is strength, a truism that is no less valid for all its treatiness. An effective coalition of black nationalist groups might be the first step towards a real Mau Mau, or Black Revolutionary Army in America, the beginning of a true revolution. They got to prevent that. So any rise and unification of our people must be thwarted, must be prevented. That's why we got all these different organizations and everybody's saying they're the best. That's why we got all these different churches and everybody saying their God is the goddiest. That's why we got all these different clubs and groups and ideologies, because everybody want to be right, but none of these ideologies can come together for the unification of one black grocery store, one black restaurant. I'm not talking about small scale. I'm talking about what do you call them? Franchises. Prevent the coalition of militant black nationalist groups. That's number one. Number two, prevent the rise of a Messiah who could unify and electrify the militant black nationalist movement. Malcolm X might have been such a Messiah. He is the martyr of the movement today. Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, Elijah Muhammad, all inspired in this position. Elijah Muhammad is less of a threat because of his age. They had this written down, that Elijah is not so much of a threat because he's an old dude. King could be a very real contender for this position should he abandon his supposed obedience to white liberal doctrines. If King were to abandon his nonviolent stance, they say he could very well be a threat. If he abandoned it and embraced black nationalism, he could be a threat. Carmichael had the necessary charisma to be a real threat in this way. Now, Dr. King started talking about pooling our monies and buying and making our own bread, having our own bus companies, having our own taxi cab services, all our own rice, our own this, our own that. He became a threat because he started to lean towards black nationalism. Every single race in this country wants something of their own. The Asians can treat you like garbage. The Hindus come here and they counter the black hair and black makeup and black products market, and they get black women in there to sell their products, and they in the back counting the money. But if we try to do it, it's a problem. Why is it so important to destroy black boys before they get a chance to know who and what they are? Why is it so important that you raise your black boy for 18, 19, 20 years, and the minute he get out on the street, the influence is so strong that he abandons and she abandoned all of her home training? A woman told me black lady, black elder, told me it's still necessary to instill that in them, because at least if they have a moment of clarity, they can see what you taught them. But if they're young and you don't teach them anything, that's the special thing about my situation. I wasn't taught blackness. I was called blackie and ugly because I was black. It's God sent me after high school to New York. I went to New York to wild out like New Yorkers do. But I ended up working in a lawyer's firm in New York, a Jewish lawyer firm. And I was under the tutelage of Jewish men and black men who understood blackness. So they steered me towards books and learning and away from street life. Even though I went to clubs with them, party with them, the main goal was get knowledge of self. That's my blessing. Number 3, prevent violence on the part of black nationalist groups. You saw the Tory Nichols protest this time? Remember all the violence we used to have? And this time it was just a little, with all of the connections to a cover-up. See, everybody is so laid back now and so wasted out, man, that we don't even protest right no more. We don't protest with belief and aggression. Prevent violence on the part of black nationalist group. This is of primary importance, and is of course a goal of our investigative activities. It should also be a goal of the counterintelligence program to pinpoint potential troublemakers and neutralize them before they exercise their potential violence. Prevent militant black nationalist groups and leaders from gaining respectability by discrediting them to 3 separate segments of the community. Listen to what I'm saying. To a degree, this is happening to me. I'm being discredited. And you hope that you have people in your corner who would speak on your behalf. You know, we had a mosque in Sumter, and there was a white Shriner. When we met on Friday, he would be at the front door. He would leave letters sometimes, and he would leave money sometimes. And sometimes he would just say, I want to tell y'all how happy we are that you all are trying to do something for yourself. And if there's anything we can do to help you, let us know. White. Because a civilized society is what you want. But when evil people think that you're trying to do something against them, they're going to set you up. Somebody in my community told me they're trying to set you up. Somebody in my community told me they're trying to set you up. Prevent militant black nationalist groups and leaders from gaining respectability by discrediting them to 3 separate segments of the community. The goal of discrediting black nationalists must be handled tactically in 3 ways. Check this out. You must discredit those groups and individuals to first the responsible Negro community. Second, they must be discredited to the white community, both the responsible community to the liberals who have vestige of sympathy for militant black nationalists, simply because they are Negroes. Third, these groups must be discredited in the eyes of Negro radicals, the followers of the movement. This last area requires entirely different tactics from the first 2, publicly about violent tendencies, and radical statements merely enhance black nationalism. To the last group, it adds respectability in a different way. And finally, a final goal should be to prevent the long-range growth of militant black organizations, especially among youth. In Denver, Colorado, they put $20 million in stopping gang violence, and it got worse. This is fact. In areas where they claim to be putting money in, it gets worse. Why? Because you're not a unified force. You're not a militant organization for the rise of your people. You are destructive. So sometimes these people are allowed to be let loose on innocent people to kill their target, just like what they did with Dylan Roof. I'm going to say this, then I'm going to stop with that. But Dylan Ruth had one target when he went to that church. One. The rest were collateral damage. Somebody in that room was saying things that shouldn't be said and had to be neutralized. I'm going to leave it. A final goal should be to prevent the long-range growth of militant black organizations, especially among youth. Specific tactics to prevent these groups from converting young people must be developed. What are those tactics? Drugs, envy, study the mind of young people and use that against them. Emotion, ego, selfishness, anarchy. Make them think that they're free because they're strong enough to do what they want. Listen, I have a book that I called The Color of Law. And when certain interest groups want to disrupt the community, they deliberately put troublemakers in the midst of that community, hoping that the community is not strong enough to stand up against the troublemakers. Then they take political leaders, political people who smile at you every day. This is in a book. They take these political leaders and give them power in that community. They can make money in that community. And the only thing that they have to do is to ensure that there is disruption. And I'm telling you, there are black leaders in Clarendon County that are on board with that. Not everybody, but some. Why is everybody hating on black people and got us hating on ourselves? Why? What did we do besides be a good slave? What did we do besides follow the rules of this society, because it is now our society? We are Americans, period. Our ancestors fought, bled, and died. Can't see morning, can't see night. Struggled. What I've read to you is not what I'm saying out of just talking now. Understand me. This is all documented evidence if you only just read a book. But they got you so hooked up on a fantasy life that you can't even read a book. I can't get my, okay, here we go. You can't even read a book. We're 42 minutes in. I got to move a little faster. Now, for those of you who think that the ghetto is something new, and we're going to close in a few. The introduction of the word ghetto, G-H-E-T-T-O-S, ghettos. Let me read this for you. I want you to see it. Facts. This is the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. I got to come with facts because we need facts today. We need proof. Let me read this. Introduction. As one of the first steps in the Nazi plan to murder the Jews of Europe, the German authorities ordered the concentration and segregation of Jews into ghettos. Jews from similar communities were transported into the ghettos of nearby towns and cities. The large number of people and the limited available space and resources resulted in several overcrowding, starving, and disease. That sound familiar to you? Though meant to be only a temporary arrangement, the ghettos under the governance of the Juderat Jewish Council usually contain some semblance of community, including medical services and religious, educational, and cultural activities. It looked like, it resembled community. The ghetto occupants tried to live as normal a life as possible, but harsh German directive regularly hampered these efforts. Ordered to surrender their homes and their belongings and forced to supply labor to the German war machine, the Jews were exploited and tortured while they struggled to survive. Does that sound familiar to you? I'm telling you, there's nothing new under the sun. This Black History Month, let's go into this thing. Let's talk about it for a minute then. The ghetto was already there. The ghetto was set up by Nazi Germany and Hitler and his boys. It was a psychological experiment. Even when it looks like you are succeeding, we're going to crush it all. So anywhere where there is like growth, remember Black Wall Street? Remember Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street? Remember Rosewood? There was even a place in Clarendon County called Freetown. You don't know nothing about it. And the woman, black woman who was rich enough to hold down the town, now her little tombstone is hidden somewhere in the bushes, but all around that is something else going on. Not that you care, but I'm telling you, because we are not concerned about our past, psychologically, God is going to damage us. Psychologically, I don't care what it looks like you think you got. This information came from the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. Now I want to get to this. We almost done. This is also from the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. You can look in the Holocaust Encyclopedia to find this information. During the Holocaust, the creation of ghettos was a key step in the Nazi process of brutally separating, persecuting, and ultimately destroying Europe's Jews. Jews were forced to move into the ghettos where living conditions were miserable. Ghettos were often enclosed districts that isolated Jews from the non-Jewish population and from other Jewish communities. In other words, there's some uppity Jews, and then there are the poor Jews. The uppity Jews could care less about the poor Jews. There's some uppity black folk, some poor black folk. The uppity black folk could care less about the poor black, but they'll smile at you. They'll take pictures with you. They'll do all of that, but they could care less about your livelihood. Your family does not matter. This Black History Month, we're talking about preventing the rise of a black messiah, and this is all documented. I ain't telling you nothing you don't know. Nothing you don't know. It's not hatred. It's not to incite trouble, because I'm not a troublemaker, because I ain't built like that. I'm not built trouble. But I got a sincere love for truth. And there ain't nothing that I told you just now about the rise of a Messiah and this book called Bible that's any different. Ain't nothing in this, and ain't nothing in the Quran or any other religious book that ain't the same. Ghettos are created from the beginning of time to keep an eye on anybody that might become someone of consequence. And if they are someone of consequence, the people of power are going to make you an offer that you cannot refuse. You can stay rich and wealthy, and you can be the ideal person for black people and white people, but you can never reach down to help them in the way that they need help. Now, after Hitler, drugged out, on drugs heavy, and committed suicide, and the whole regime fell apart, there were about 1,600 scientists who were conducting these experiments on the people. And the US government hired those scientists and brought them over here to conduct those same experiments on guess who? Take a guess. All right. Let me put this up there, and then we're going to go on home. I pray. I pray God gives us strength today. Operation Paperclip. Operation Paperclip. This is a real thing. Project Paperclip for the Holocaust Project, it says see Paperclip projects, blah, blah. Operation Paperclip was a secret United States intelligence program in which more than 1,600 German scientists, engineers, and technicians were taken from the former Nazi Germany to the U.S. for government employment after the end of World War II in Europe. Between 1945 and 1959, conducted by the Joint Intelligence Objective Agency, JIOA, it was largely carried out by special agents of the U.S. Army Counterintelligence Corps, CIC. Many of these personnel were former members, and some were former leaders of the Nazi Party. In February 1945, Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary forces, SHAF, SHAEF, SHAEF, set up T-Force, a special section subdivision which grew to over 2,000 personnel by June. T-Force examined 5,000 German targets with a high priority on synthetic rubber and oil catalysts, new designs in armored equipment, V-2 rockets, weapons, jets and rockets, propelled aircraft, naval equipment, field radio, secret writing, chemicals, aerial medication research, gliders, and scientific and industrial personnel. All of the experiments that were being conducted to control people. If you've never read Zbigniew Brzezinski book, The Grand Chessboard, Tragedy and Hope. If you never heard Zbigniew Brzezinski, look him up on YouTube, where he said at one time it was easier to control 1,000 people, but now it's easier to kill 1,000 people. It's easier to kill 1,000 than it is to control. I'm telling you that we have been placed in a position where we're going to be the killers of ourselves. And nobody likes the messenger. Nobody likes the person who has to deliver the message. And every time I have to do it, I'm terrified. Because I know you're going to hear what you want to hear from what I'm saying and not what I'm saying. And it frightens me that after all of these years, 6,000 years, all 2,000 years from biblical times to over and over, we still in the same place that we were. What's going on with the violence now? What's going on in the 60s and the 80s? The gangs in New York were crazy. I was there. And it wasn't until politics and grants and loans came into play that gradually the parts that were destroyed, gentrification took them over. They built new establishments, did new things, and left the poor and disenfranchised out. And yesterday someone told me that the children today should have been the slaves, and the slaves should have had the freedom of the children today, because youth is wasted on the young, and you all are wasting your life. And unfortunately, there is a miserable group of 50, 60, and 70-year-old men and women. They're miserable. They have accomplished nothing in their lives of value. And their main objective is to hustle and scheme and bring as many people in the fold of what they're about, which is nothing. And unfortunately, they have such a great gift of gab that they're steering our children away from their intended purpose in life. Educated people are necessary. Controlled people are necessary. Workers are necessary. Gardeners are necessary. Farmers are necessary. The police are necessary. The fire department, necessary. EMS, necessary. All these people have helped me in my life. They're necessary. That is a part of a civilized society. We're supposed to get along, black and white. We're supposed to get along, lesbian, gay, trans. We're supposed to get along. It'll all play out when God returns, if that is what it's supposed to be. But a civilized society has respect for all of its elements. Are you understanding me? I talk black, but I'm not talking black out of hatred. I'm talking black out of love and the pain that is felt from our ancestors of what we should have done, how we should have grown, and how we got sidetracked. It ain't just the street people, the hustler, the scammer. The educated got sidetracked. Look at how they act towards their own people. But there are some who share, some who do the right thing. You'll find out who they are when you're in trouble and you need blankets and you need food. There are people that come out with these things and don't ask anything of you. I'm not a divider, but I see the benefit in unity and respect and law. And I see the detriment in anarchy. But I also see, by God's permission, those people who have accepted Satan's offer and have signed Satan's contract, that they want to be the big wigs. They want to be the big shots. They want to be the untouchables, but they don't realize that eventually they will get touched one way or another. So I'm going to stay with God. 55 minutes in. Thank you. We did it. I realized in the past that I have overstepped my bounds in what I say and what I should have said, and how I behaved and how I should have behaved. And if I offended anyone in anything that I've said or any way I've behaved that is outside of me defending myself and my family, I apologize about that. And if you notice that I apologize a lot, apologizing is easy. It actually makes you a better person when you see you're wrong. I got a son that, man, he don't apologize about nothing. He'll lie looking straight in your face. That's a mental illness. And it gets no better. It gets worse. So what God wants this Black History Month, because I don't even think there will be one next year, because the church ain't doing nothing much, and not all of them, some of them. We're just not doing any service to the struggle of our people, not just black, white, red, brown, and yellow, gays, because I love James Baldwin. I love Richard Wright. He was bisexual. I mean, these people, prolific writers and activists. I feel the same about Father Pfleger, who's still alive. He fights for the community. I feel the same about a lot of different black and whites and police organizations. And, how would the crimes be solved if it were not for them? You answer that for me. How would we solve? We ain't snitching. We ain't telling nothing. But we ain't taking care of nothing either, not the right way. Thank you for tuning in. Black History Month. Do something black. Blessings to you. Jamil Salib Zamir, Manning, South Carolina.
Tell me like it is, and not like it was. Tell me like it is.